welcome to everyone. Welcome for being here with me live. Welcome to everyone that is watching the replay. Whether you're watching the replay or you're here live, like act like you are here live and you can interact, send me messages, make comments. I would love to hear like your questions and comments. And if you have any like breakthrough or insight moments, like I absolutely love to hear about that. So don't hesitate to reach out or send me a message afterwards for anything that is dropped in and integrated as well. So my intention for this masterclass is just to share with you this beautiful Gene Keys transmission and some of the a lot of the things that I have learned through my personal study with the Gene Keys, but also some of my personal insights weaved in as well. And for us to really explore, what does it mean to find your life's work? And what does it mean to have something that we are here to do in the world? And how that can have a lot of like variations and flavors, and how to actually play with that in a practical way, but also like a mystical and playful way as well. And I will, at the end, I will talk a little bit about if you want to keep exploring the Gene Keys with me and do more of a deep dive into your personal coding. I'll talk about the ways we can do that at the end. A little introduction about me. So many people have registered for this masterclass that I have never met before. So I'm so excited to connect with you for the first time and to meet you. And I would love to get to know you more. So again, reach out whenever you want. So my name is Rachel White, like you would have seen. I am a coach, author, speaker, Gene Keys guide. And all of my work is really centered around connecting women into their own depth and into the depth of their creativity, sensuality, and into their expression, really with the end game of making art out of life and feeling alive in our life and in our body. And there are so many variations of that, but that is really the core of my work. And I do that by providing Gene Keys guidance, personal coaching. I've written a lot of books. I have a podcast. I have programs and all the things, which if you want to find out more about ways you can learn from me and work with me and receive my guidance, again, I'll mention a couple of ways at the end, but you can reach out anytime and we can have a chat about that. A very brief introduction to the Gene Keys, if this happens to be anyone's very first introduction to them, or if you're just starting your journey with the Gene Keys. I also do have another masterclass where I spend an hour just diving into like the fundamentals and the introduction. So if you want that, if you're new, send me a message and I will send you that link. But a very brief introduction is that the Gene Keys provides the framework for the 64 story codes of human evolution. And the Gene Keys also provides us our personal sequences that give us insights and activations to our personal cosmic coding. And the insights and activations are into our gifts that we bring into the world that make us unique and that contribute to the evolution of the collective and of ourselves, and the divine fuel to those gifts with the cities and the distortions that can happen through lower frequencies in our shadows. So we get those insights and activations into our personal coding, and the entire Gene Keys transmission with all 64 of the Gene Keys is like the cosmic backdrop. It captures each fractal line of pure source energy. And that makes up all life within the cosmos, within the 64-part matrix of all life. And it's more than just this nice information about you. Like, I know we all love to hear nice things about us, and sometimes we like to hear like those shadow parts of ourselves as well, but it's more than just information about you. It's really activating codes that activate your own inner wisdom. And this is something that I really love about the Gene Keys system, that it's always about your inner wisdom rather than like these dogmas or rules or things that are being imposed on you when you learn about the system. It's not putting you in a box. It's giving you like the map and the guidance and the space to really activate your own wisdom, and to also see like these cosmic archetypes that you have encoded within your DNA to bring to life in the world as well. And I did want to take just a little moment to really honor the source of this transmission. So Richard Rudd is the first student, the founder, the creator of this gene key system. So I want to take a moment just to really honor him and to honor everything else, like everything the gene keys was built upon: human design, the I Ching, all sacred texts and teachings. And I really honor that. I really honor every person that has contributed to bringing this transmission to life, and all the steps it took for me to come here. And I honor you for being here as well. Okay, so let's get into your life's work. When you look at your Gene Keys profile, so if you don't have your profile yet, go to genekeys.com and you'll see in the menu bar, free profile, enter your birth details, and you'll get your Gene Keys profile. And the very top sphere, so there's like a circle on the top, you'll see that it says life's work. And this is the sphere of your life's work. And it's the story code or the encoding or the imprint for what you are here to do in the world. And this gene key of the life's work, this sphere of the life's work, sits like the tip of the iceberg on the top of the profile, because this is the sphere, this is the realm of our life where we meet the external world, where everything underneath is fueling our expression in the outer world, our life in the outer world, and where we meet things externally. And it's the tip of the iceberg because it's like the encoding for what people generally see about us and about the work we do in the world. But of course, there is so much depth and nuance and all these other things happening within it. So in this sense, like all of our gene keys, like all of our profile really feed into the work that we do in the world. And the tip of the iceberg is a really beautiful starting point to start at the surface. Because if we try to start, at the bottom or in the middle, sometimes it's really easy to get like muddled and lost. But if we start at the surface, it gives us a really clear foundation for what we are seeing, for what we are experiencing. And then we can, dig for more depth from the top and from the surface, instead of trying to get to places where we haven't really built the foundation to go to. And this sphere of the life's work is within your activation sequence, which are the green spheres of your profile. Your activation sequence makes up 70% of your genetic coding or your holographic imprint that is embedded within your DNA. And the activation sequence is what gives you your core stability, your physical grounding in the world. That's so important before you enter some of the deeper emotional healing and other things that are along the golden path of the gene keys. So this life's work is the tip of the iceberg, the really, really beautiful starting point within the path of the gene keys. And the gene key that you have within this sphere, so within every sphere, you'll see you have a gene key and a line number. The gene key is the first number, then there's a decimal point, and the second number is the line. And each gene key is imprinted by the position of different planets and astrological objects, and the life's work is imprinted by the sun. So this is your solar energy, and like if you think of the sun, like how bright and radiant it is, and how it gives warmth and life in the world, and how it keeps all of us on earth alive. So just like feel into like the archetype of the sun and how that represents your life's work energy. It's like the solar energy of the sun energizes the gene key that you have within your life's work. And that energy was imprinted within your DNA to give you the coding for what you were here to do in the world, like the work you were here to do that contributes to the evolution of the whole, which is really cool. So this life's work sphere, like on your birthday every year, will be like your solar return of the gene key that you have here, which I love. I just had a birthday a few weeks ago, and I loved really celebrating this gene key along with my birthday celebrations. Okay, so that's a little around like why that gene key is there, because it was the position of the sun in relation to the position you were born on Earth at the time that you were born. And if you don't know, just a little side note for anyone that doesn't know their birth time, what I generally do is I just put like 3 different options when you're creating your free profile. I do one at like 1 past midnight, one at midday, and then one at like 11:59 p.m. And I just look at any movements. And usually for like the life's work, so each solar transit lasts 5 or 6 days. So usually like your gene key won't change unless you're kind of like on the cusp of a change. And you can kind of just play with both options and see what resonates with you more. The thing that is most likely to change if you don't have an accurate birth time is your line number. So if when I'm going to talk about all of the lines towards the end, and just say you have like a line 2 but your birth time was an estimate, like maybe play into the line 1 and the line 3 and see what resonates more. Your intuition is so much more important than the information presented in front of you. So take everything with like that little grain of salt to grind it a little more and see what really resonates with you more deeply, as opposed to just accepting what it tells you. Like, trust your inner authority above all else. So this what I find really fascinating about when I was really planning for this masterclass, or when I was thinking about like our life's work and how a lot of us are really programmed to have this search for, what am I here to do in the world? And I hear this question from a lot of clients and a lot of people that reach out to me, is like, they just don't know, like, what is the one thing that I'm meant to be doing? Like, what is the thing I'm meant for that will allow me to make the difference I want to and be the person I want to and feel fulfilled in all of those ways. And it's a search that a lot of us have internally when we have our slice of the primal sacred wound that we all have, which again, I'll come back to that. But what I find really interesting is this programming we have for needing to know what we want to do from such an early age. And the question of, what do you want to be when you grow up? That is like, I hear people ask that question to toddlers, like to people that are literally like still in nappies or just started primary school, that are just so early on in their life, when really like their main focus is just playing in the world. But because we're kind of conditioned to constantly ask people those questions of, what do you want to be when you grow up? And what I find really interesting about that question is almost always what they really mean is, what do you want to do for paid work when you are an adult? Like, that's the actual question, but it's phrased as, what do you want to be? So from very early on in life, we are conditioned to really link who we are, like who we are being, with what we do for paid work, like what we get paid for in the world. And those two things get really entangled. And to me, like, they are two completely separate things. And of course, like, who we are influences the type of work that we want to do in the world, but they are still two completely separate things. Who we are is not what we do, and what we do is just not who we are. And our work can definitely be an extension of our identity. Like, I definitely feel like that within my business, that part of my identity is poured into my work. But who I am is something that is at the core of my being, that even if I could never work another day in my life, like, I would still be me. And when we fully disentangle those connections, we can really come to that grounded place, like within our purpose, within our grounded stability. And this is something that we definitely come into more like throughout the activation sequence, especially when we get to the sphere of purpose. But when we just look at the life's work, like, let's look at this in isolation. Like, what is the work that we are here to do? And really keeping also in mind that the same role, like the same title, like job position or role, can be done in an infinite amount of ways. Your gift in your life's work is your way of working. It's the how and the why you are doing the work that you're doing, as opposed to what it is exactly. It is like the job of a teacher or a police person or a accountant or a online business person or a coach or a parent, or like all of these roles and titles sound like they're the same thing across the board, but all of those roles can be done in so many different ways. Like, there is so many different energies and ideas and perspectives and all of those things that you can bring to anything. And when you look at your life's work, it's like the shadows across all of the 64 gene keys are essentially the same. Like, there are definitely different flavors and nuances and context to them, but the shadows are all the same and the cities are all the same. the different flavors for sure, but the shadows are always either like a mental or emotional constriction that you either suppress and numb your life force, or you become reactive to and project your wounds and your pain and your suffering in the world. That is what being in your shadow frequency essentially is, being in the victim mentality, mentally and emotionally. And the cities are always the same. The cities always require like a surrendering of your individual identity, coming back home to source. And of course, there are different fractals, there are different flavors, but essentially all the same. The differentiation comes in the gift. Like your gift is what is unique. The gifts are what differentiate you, and the sequence of your gifts together is what gives you even more differentiation. But when we look at the life's work sphere specifically, like it is your gift in the combination of the gifts with your line that gives you your unique personal coding. It is the way that matters. It is the journey that matters. And I kind of think of it like when I think of sacred geometry, like how there are all these like crossover points, I kind of think of like the journey of each gene key like as a circle, where it's like the starting point and the end point are the same. Like the shadow is the same, and then just slightly over is the city, and it's like the circle is the gift. So it's like this is the way you are traveling, and that's what actually matters, as opposed to like the start and the end point of the shadow and the city, which are really like one in the same, just like the duality of the polar opposites. And sometimes it's so easy for us to get caught up in our shadows, and it's like usually we resonate with the shadows immediately, being like, oh my God, yes, like that is me. We can see the worst parts of us a lot more easily than the best parts, generally speaking, of course. But I really invite you to just play with the gift and the city as well, but play with the gift the most and really see how you are so unique, and how this can really fuel the how and the why of the work that you are here to do in the world. And play with, like, sometimes also we can think that we can come into this like belief that the things that are easy for me are just easy for everyone. Like there's nothing special about me. Like the things I can do, everyone can just do that. Isn't it like just common knowledge or common sense or just a common thing? And we can so easily think that, but no, like that is not true at all. You are so unique in the gifts that you bring into the world. And I think that sometimes like exploring other people's gifts can just make that even more obvious to you, that not everyone is good at the things that you are good at. Not everyone has the natural talents that you have. Like your gift is your unique differentiation. But when we're in the shadow, everyone looks the same. When we're at acidic level, which, you know, we will rarely collectively be in our human bodies, but at that level, like everyone's the same. But it's your gift is what makes you unique. And this is so important when it comes to the work that we are doing in the world, because all our gifts are needed for our collective evolution and for you to feel fulfilled in your life as well. So it doesn't matter what you do, it matters how you do it, because you can bring your gifts into anything that you are doing. And there are definitely different roles within the world that allow your gifts to shine and be embodied more so than other roles. And often it's not necessarily about the role itself or the work itself, but it can be about like the structure of the organization or the energy of the overall industry that may not align completely with your gifts and the way that you want to work in the world. And this was definitely my experience, where a lifetime ago I worked professionally as an accountant for almost a decade, and I really did like love the work that I was doing in a lot of ways. But the environment of working full time, like 8 to 5 every day, not having creative control over what I was doing, even just the desk setup, the drab office walls, even like the tax and business structure within like the Australian legal system, like all of it was just so confining to my energy. And I even thought about like starting my own accounting firm and all things like that, which I totally could have put my energy behind. I chose a different route, but I could have kept doing that work. Like I genuinely loved it and definitely brought my gifts into it in a way. But the structure in which it was available at the time that I was working was just not aligned with who I am as a person. at all. And I have like a whole story on what it took for me to leave and all of that, which we can talk about another time. I've recorded different masterclasses about that. Again, reach out if you want to hear more. And so I see so much of this in the world where it's like where people really do like love the work that they're doing, but they hate the environment or the structure or the management that they need to report to. And this even came at like one of my sisters worked at a supermarket when she was in high school, and her managers acted like they owned her life. Like they would ask her to come in when school was still on. They would act like if she didn't do exactly what they wanted, like she would be fired and just replaced. And I find it so interesting, like this idea of like the middle management of how they exert control like over people in a lot of industries, like in supermarkets, retail, but also like wider in professions and all of that as well. And it does make it challenging, like more challenging for us to be unique and to use our gifts when, you know, the whole purpose of capitalism through the patriarchy is to detach people from their value. Like that's why they want to offer a low hourly wage, like to detach you from the value that you are actually bringing to that organization and into the world. So it's like no wonder that so many of us have felt like in the past or are feeling now like we're disconnected from what work we want to do in the world and how we actually do work that feels good for us, and that we are allowed to be ourselves within that role as well. And this was another thing when I was working professionally, was that I felt like I couldn't be my full self. Like I felt like I was kind of like split in half. I was my professional self and I was my like spiritual, creative other self, and I could never be both at once. And if you feel like that in the role that you are now, then it's time to either like really surrender to integrating your full self into the role, or to leave to be in an environment where you actually can be your full self, because like splitting yourself in half is only going to dilute your potency and probably keep you in that shadow frequency. And oh my god, I could talk so much more about how capitalism like and the patriarchy detach us from our value and our gifts, but I won't. You can leave the place that you have worked at for 10 years. You absolutely can. You can enter a completely different field than the university degree that you just spent 4 years studying, or that you've spent tens of thousands of dollars on. You can, you can do all of these things, and I have, done those things, and trust me, like you'll be fine on the other end of it, and you will release so much of your life force and your creativity through that as well. And when exploring like the work that you are designed to do in the world and the work that feels fulfilling to you, I really invite you to expand your perspective of what work is. And in the context of the Gene Keys, your work is your service, and your service can be connected to what you were doing, like what you were getting paid for, but it can also be your volunteer work. It can be your family work. It is your contribution, your service in the world. And we can contribute and provide service in the world in so many different ways. And it's not always necessarily what you're getting paid for or your main profession. And sometimes we have these transition periods where we have a job that we don't necessarily love, but it is funding the things that we do love. So we can make that crossover. And why, like when we just coming back to like why so many people are searching for the work that is just right for them, is because at the core of us, like it is human nature to want to feel fulfilled, to want to feel whole. And we all have like our slice of the sacred wound of collective karma that makes us feel like a little unsettled, like a tiny bit of this like anxious or nervous energy that drives us to evolve, that drives us to change, that drives us to wholeness. And when we externalize that drive, we can start to look for external validation, external highs, external whatever. And the gene keys is really the system that turns our focus inwards. Like, how can you look for that fulfillment and that wholeness and that compassion and love that you've been externally searching for? How can you turn that inwards? And when you turn it inwards, that is when you bring clarity to what is the external work. And it's like, instead of looking outwards to try to fulfill yourself, it's looking inwards and then just letting that naturally emanate outwards. And that is what brings ease to our journey. And when you start to look in, really connect to your gift and your city. And here it's like, when you're connecting to your gift and city, the more you just naturally realize that it really doesn't matter what you are doing. It matters how and why you're doing it, but also the opportunities to do the best things for you will be revealed like through your own inner clarity and through your gifts, like you in your most aligned, full, like radiant, vibrant self naturally attracts the opportunities that allow you to feel fulfilled. But that fulfillment actually comes from inside yourself and then is reflected outwards. And I know that if we are in like this shadow state, or even like this scarcity state where, you know, we know mentally we have bills to pay, we need to make money, and we're in that external search for how can I do that? How can I do that? It can be like very challenging in those times to really turn inwards and to trust that you are like part of nature, and nature will always provide for you, and you are always safe in that sense. And there is like the perfect role in the world for you to feel fulfilled right now. And sometimes you need to create that for yourself. And sometimes you just need to move into your gift frequency to attract those opportunities to you. So let's have a look like more specifically within the details of the sphere of our life's work. So the shadow that you have here in your gene key is likely the shadow that prevents you from finding your role. So look at the shadow you have and the patterns that manifest, the patterns and the beliefs and the habits that manifest through that shadow frequency, and look at how they may be really like interfering with you finding work or finding the role in your place in the world, that is really meant for you. Like, how does that shadow undermine you? And the process is, with all shadows, is to allow, accept, and embrace. If you recognize a shadow that has been really undermining your work in the world, usually the shadow here in your life's work, can you allow it? Can you just allow for a moment to it to be there, to see it clearly, and then to accept that this has been your past, this has been part of your history, and this shadow is part of yourself and part of your coding. And then through the embrace, it's like, can I embrace the energy of this shadow and allow it to mutate into something else, which brings you into your gift frequency? And it's that simple like shift in your attitude and awareness, in gentleness and compassion and like gentle inquiry into yourself, that just naturally moves you into the gift. And this is another thing that I really love about the gene keys, is that it's not hard work. It's not things that you force or work your way through. It's allowing yourself to simply be your natural self, to be in your energy, and the breakthroughs and insights and mutations naturally occur. And it takes trust, it takes surrender, it takes patience, which is definitely something I had to learn in so many layers. And I think a lot of us need to learn patience, or relearn patience as well. The gift that you have here in the sphere of your life's work is your inner world that ripples out into the outer world and into your work. Like, the gift that you have here is the how that you do the work, and a little bit of the why as well. And your city is the divine essence of your work, and the city is the divine gift that fuels the gift. Your gift is like the city in action. So when you're looking at your life's work gene key, like, I really encourage you to look more, play more with the gift and the city, and just be loosely aware of the shadow. Be aware of when the shadow is coming up, but bring so much more of your attention to the gift and city. And I've heard like Richard Rudd say a number of times, that it's like 90% of your focus on the gift and city, 10% on the shadow. And sometimes we want to swap that and be like, all focus on the shadow, maybe 5 or 10% on the gift and city, but swap that around and like really bring your awareness to your higher nature and let that be like a pulling force instead of focusing on the shadow and keeping yourself in that lower state. And something else that I love about the Gene Keys is that like the language used in the Gene Keys are linguistic keys within themselves. So the Gene Keys really recontextualizes a lot of the words that it uses, to describe the 3 frequency bands. So when you see like the words within your Gene Keys profile, they may not always mean your like the definition that you already know about that word within the context of the Gene Keys. So I do really invite you to explore deeper than the words on your profile itself into what exactly they mean in the context of having them as a Gene Key, and exploring the relationship between the 3. And even though they're broken into 3 frequency bands of the shadow, the gift, and the city, there are so many like layers and things like woven in between them. And it's not necessarily that you're stuck in like the shadow and then you move to the level of the gift. There are like an infinite amount of levels between them as well. So you can explore it in that way as well. Like you can have shadow patterns while also having gift patterns like as well in your life. And then, so explore the Gene Key that you have there. And then when you look at your lines, your line gives you further like nuance to the imprinting of the Gene Key. And I like to think of it as the Gene Key draws this picture almost like a comic strip of like the storyline that your Gene Key tells. And then the line is like the coloring and the thing that animates the comic strip and like brings it to life in a different way. And knowing the line and like the gift of your line just brings deeper insight into your role within the collective when you're looking at the line within the sphere of your life's work. So a line 1 has the keynote of the creator, and you are here to change the way that people breathe. And I have a line 1 here, and when I think about like here to change the way people breathe, it's like you're here to change the way people anchor themselves, stabilize themselves, how they invite life into their body, how they experience the world, starting with the foundation of themselves and like starting at their body internally, like stillness, solitude, silence. Line 2 is the dancer. You're here to change the way people move. And line 2s are people that like line 2 is the most like expressive line, and they're very expressive with their body, a little with their voice, but more with their body. And being here to change the way people move, it's like you're bringing them into a deeper rhythm with themselves, with their internal energy, but also with like the pulse of life. And changing the way people move is like you're making them more flexible, more adaptable, more just like open to going with the flow of like the rhythm that they are in at the moment and the patterns they're in at the moment, as opposed to being like stiff and constricted. The line 3 is the changer, and you're here to change the way people feel about themselves. And the line 3, it's like adventure, change. All of this is really important to these line 3s. And line 3s really set people up to like take these quantum leaps because they change the way that people see themselves and the adventures that they are in and the patterns that they are in. Like line 3s bring this really like playful and humorous perspective to other people and like give them these new lens to look at their life through. Line 4s are the servers, and they are here to change the way people feel about others. And that is because like line 4s are these like warm energies that really connect to the hearts of other people. And so often our judgment and our resentments towards other people can really hold us back in life. So these line 4s have this really beautiful role of helping you forgive, helping you love again, and helping you see other people in a new light to feel differently about them, so that you can then feel differently about yourself and like dissolve those things you were holding on or projecting like onto other people. The line 5 is the fixer, and the fixer is here to change the way people behave. Line 5s are like people that are here for big impact, to be the big voice in the world, and to give very practical solutions, practical leadership to help people behave and act in different ways that will support whatever direction that they want to take in life. And then we have the line 6, which are the teachers. And the teachers are here to change the way that people think. They're the wise beings that offer these like slight, subtle perspective shifts that allow people to think about things in completely different ways. And the way that we think about things in the world has such a like rippled impact into all the other lines, but in everything we do in the world. So Natalie is here live. So I'm going to talk about what you have in your profile. So Natalie has the 19th gene key in her life's work with the second line. And the 19th gene key has the shadow of codependency, the gift of sensitivity, and the city of sacrifice. I love this gene key so much. So this storyline is really the story of going from codependent to independent to interdependent. And I want to focus on mainly the gift of sensitivity. And the gift of sensitivity is around being very highly attuned to the needs of others, being attuned to the needs of others because you've come to the gift place of being independent from other people. Like in the shadow of codependency, like your needs, wants, and desires are entangled with others, and you give your authority and agency over to them to fulfill your needs. When you move into the gift, it's like you take that all back, and it's like you recognize that you're two separate beings, so you can see their needs very clearly. And this high sensitivity is your sensitivity to energy, and the needs and desires of people are within their auric field, within their astral body. So you are very like sensitive to other people's astral bodies, which is why you attune to their needs very easily. And this gift of sensitivity also makes you sensitive to the energy of other realms, of like really magical things that are happening in other dimensions all around us that not everyone has the capacity to see or to feel into. And this sensitivity is such a beautiful gift to bring into the work that you do in the world. Like people with this gift of sensitivity really they would make amazing, like pretty much any service, like a coach that deals with like the emotional world of others, a therapist, a counselor, someone that is providing emotional support to other people in any capacity. Like you could do that in really any role in life, but somewhere like where you're really getting to use your gifts of being able to feel things in such a different way to other people. And I would also say that like with the work that you were doing in the world, it's so important to stay in that independence of like really owning like what is yours and what is others. And then like this is all fueled by that divine gift of sacrifice. And sacrifice, like, this is what I mean by don't look at the word alone, because having sacrifice as a divine gift, like that word can seem like, what does that even mean? But really like the city of sacrifice is about becoming one with every being in the cosmos, and like recognizing that your energy is their energy. And in that sense, you are willing to sacrifice for the collective, and kind of like the middle ground there before getting to that like final state of sacrifice and surrender like of your individual self like into the collective field of energy is around like sacrifice, being willing to sacrifice your lower nature, your destructive habits, sacrificing the things that you know are not good for you. And when we're in like the shadow, and even sometimes in the gift, like when we're attached to our identity, like the idea of sacrifice, that I need to give up things, can really kind of like trigger this selfishness, or this like feeling of being in the shadow state, and like that codependency of like, isn't the universe meant to give me like everything I want? And that's kind of that shadow energy, like codependence with the universe, like seeing it as something outside of you. But in the city, you see that you are the universe and the universe is you. So like having the resolve to sacrifice the patterns, the habits, the friendships, the work, the anything, sacrificing that to bring you into a high frequency, to bring you more deeply into your gifts and into that acidic state, like that is the sacrifice that you can begin to bring in, like through that gift frequency. And so when we look at this with the line 2 of, you know, being that dancer, that changing the way that people move, like I think that is so beautiful to bring into work with people's emotions, like helping people move their emotions like in a different way, and even like having that sensitivity to connect with different worlds and like these different dimensions of energy, and helping people like move through them and connect with them and to see them in a different way is really beautiful. Natalie, if you want to write in the chat like what you actually do for work or what you want to do, we can kind of like connect that in to get a little more specific as well. But overall, like bringing this 19th gene key like into your life's work is I think really beautiful to bring into any role. So you currently work as a social worker. Amazing. So yes, social work is such a beautiful industry to bring this sensitivity into, like, of course, like, this is a gift that is so needed in that world. And I would say that like this is, I don't know about like the organization that you work for, that, but this could be maybe where the work you do is really good, but if there are any issues with it, maybe it's coming from the structure, not actually the work that you are doing. Amazing. I love that. I think, yeah, oh my God, I think this is perfect. Do you feel like you get to use your gifts in your work and your unique way of doing things? And I would say also, like, just something that kind of was coming through is that I don't know if you're in Australia or another country, but in Australia, at least, like social work is very like government driven. So that like that in Canada, yeah. So that sensitivity you have like to these kind of like higher dimensions and realms may not be something you can fully like integrate into, yeah, something you can't fully integrate into a government position or like a highly regulated industry like within the world we're living in right now. So it could be like just really looking at that divine fuel of sacrifice of it could be like, this is where like that city of sacrifice with the sacrifice of your individual nature can be part of this, like you sacrifice your desire to talk about things, to fulfill your gifts and like your purpose of helping people in this area. Like that's just like a basic example. But when you're in like this higher frequency, like having this city of sacrifice makes you more willing to sacrifice things that your identity clings to. And that's not to say you need to sacrifice everything or anything. It's about what you feel guided to sacrifice in your life. Let me know if you have any questions as well, Natalie. Excuse me. Okay, so amazing. So that is a little dive into the 19th gene key. Thank you, that was beautiful. Amazing. Thank you so much. If any questions come up, write them in. I will come back to them. But I just want to mention, if anyone, you, Natalie, that you're here live, or anyone that is watching the replay, if you ever want to have a deep dive into your gene keys profile with me, there are a few different ways that you can do this. I have offers open for each of the gene keys sequences. And if you're new to the gene keys, or if you're new to taking a deep dive in with the gene keys, I recommend that you start with the activation sequence. And the activation sequence starts with the sphere of life's work that I've been diving into today. You get a deep dive into the 4 spheres within your life's work, the gene key, the line, and also how they play in together and how they connect together. You get a deep dive audio recording, which usually goes, I aim for like 40 minutes. Sometimes I go up to an hour if I get carried away on a riff. And then you get about a week or so to listen and immerse in that deep dive. And then you get a 60-minute live call with me where you get personalized guidance. We can dive deeper, questions, all of those things. That is 330 Australian dollars. And then I also have options open for the other sequences, the Venus and the Pearl. They are 555. You can see the details on my website. And I also have an option if you want to do the whole profile over an intensive month together. We can do that as well. And that's 1,400. And if you want to go like even deeper to have like weekly calls with me, the most like intimacy, spaciousness, proximity, depth, my private coaching is a 4-month container that you can look into as well. I would love to talk to anyone that wants to look in that more deep dive offer that goes beyond just the Gene Keys, but definitely has it deeply woven into everything we do within private coaching. And if you want to keep exploring the Gene Keys just on your own, some resources that I recommend is like get your free profile if you haven't done that already. The Gene Keys book is amazing. Actually, I have next to me. It looks like this. It's like a very thick read. The Gene Keys book is amazing. And I will say that it is a little bit of like a heavy read when you first start reading it, but just trust that the language in and of itself is activating. I really love having the physical book, but if you only want to read your Gene Keys, the Kindle version I think is less than $15, so you can get that to just read like your sections, or you can get the physical book if you prefer that. I think it's like maybe $35. The Gene Keys website also has audios for each of the Gene Keys. They are $3.50 in US dollars per audio. So if you just purchase like the 4 that are in your activation sequence, that is a really beautiful start. I do have an affiliate link. If you want to reach out, I can definitely send you that. And then beyond that, just allowing yourself to take in, absorb, digest everything that you receive. Gently contemplate everything that comes up for you, and have deep trust in your body and in life itself that the breakthroughs will come, the insights will come, everything that is meant for you will come in a really natural, progressive way. And the next step will appear to you as well. I need to take another drink. Oh my gosh, excuse me. And I also have a lot of other masterclasses. So follow me on Instagram at by Rachel White, and you'll see the new ones that are coming up. And I'm going to make like a little bundle collection with all the previous ones I've done for really easy access as well. So thank you so much for being here for this masterclass. I've loved having you here energetically. Again, thank you, Natalie, for being here live. Thank you, everyone on the replay. Have an amazing day, and I hope you keep exploring the Gene Keys and keep feeling and experiencing the magic within them.